Hi there, everyone. I kind of wanted to do a review on the Dark Ages DLC Revelations, but the more I thought about this, turned into more of a video about just the state of the industry and the fact that it was announced the day of this DLC coming out. Usually a studio has multiple things in the pipe, essentially, but the moment that this DLC was announced to come out was also the day they announced they shut down or they fired more than half the studio at id. And that studio has been kind of the studio that's been running Doom for the past decade. And it's also been running what I would consider to be a major icon of Western gaming. They have Halo kind of on life support and Remake City. You have a lot of Star Wars games that sometimes release, but they're just nowhere near the quality that they used to be. And for myself, Xbox and its brand identity, of course, was strongly associated with Halo from 2001 to 2010. And when they handed off to 343, it kind of became slowly more relevant. And I felt like, okay, what is the identity of Xbox? What is the shooter? And for a while, I never considered Halo and the new Halos to be part of that. I considered the new shooter to be Doom. I thought Doom Guy was the big new Western style icon that we needed to move forward. And from 2016, I guess, to 2026, that was the game series that I associated with Xbox. And I remember playing Doom 2016 and the game being like exactly what I wanted, if not better. It was just an amazing, amazing experience that only got better. I mean, it's weird to look back on it now and to see the original Doom 1 and 2, and now 3. I mean, to be fair, it for a while kind of died, I would say, with Doom 3, because that was such a underwhelming, horrible. Like some people say, oh well, it's kind of like it looks good. It's the probably the one of the best looking Doom games from the lighting perspective and etc. But that was the game that almost put them in the tank. I thought everyone thought they were kind of dead after that, and Doom 4, the Doom reboot, really actually saved the series. And so just kind of more of a retrospective on the new Doom trilogy from 2016 to Eternal to Dark Ages and the DLC packs between each one. Um, it's funny that I still, out of all of them, still prefer Doom 2016 just from an aesthetic point of view. It just looks the best, I feel. It doesn't play the best, that's obviously true. Like the later games do obviously play better, but the feeling, the tone, even the story beats in the first reboot actually felt pretty decent and very specific. Eternal became more arcadey, more throwback, more nostalgic, where it tried to mythologize a lot of the details from the previous games, like Daisy and stuff like that. And some of it was a bit, kind of itchy, I suppose. But on the whole, it was very, very cool. Like the Doom Guy space station, all of the different rooms you could unlock, the giant mech you couldn't use. All the style and the story and the universe felt a lot cooler. They introduced Argent. No, I already had Argent. Exultia, and that kind of medieval kind of style that they really doubled down in Dark Ages. And Dark Ages is it's a weird game because Dark Ages felt like a mix between Eternal and 2016. It was more grounded, realistic, and gritty without being super arcadey, but it did still have those comical elements to it. And again, the entire, the problem is that the Dark Ages always didn't feel like I love the introduction of the shield and the difference of the gameplay and how it was more kind of, I don't want to say traditional, but more like a step back from the arcade style and more grounded. Literally, you're not flying all over the place. But the story just, I don't know. It wasn't this big epic medieval style thing that we really wanted it to be. And the other issue is that, or the benefit is that with Revelations, is that it's kind of like it's previously in time, and I mean the whole point of the Dark Age is that it's in the past, so it's filling in a lot of gaps. Revelations fills in further story gaps about the betrayal of the Con Maker, and how that all went down, and also certain side characters, some subplots that honestly I didn't really care about or notice until someone explained what exactly was going on, because it was like, oh yeah, that's who that character was. And it's only if you play these games back to back you really fill those blanks. But the other thing about, I think, Revelation's most recent DLC that's really great is the Spear, which is basically a nice hybrid of Eternal's gameplay kind of brought into the Dark Ages setting, where the Spear, I mean, having the Spear doesn't make it obvious, but it allows you to dash twice, which is the main mechanic in Eternal. It also gives you the meat hook, which was a super shotgun exclusive, but now you can use it all the time. What's very cool is you can swap between the shield and the Spear. The Revelations DLC, it feels good to play. It's probably the most polished out of all of them. But as a holistic experience, it's not superb, because they just basically throw 4 new levels at you in more or less the same environments. Osea is this desert-style place of dry bone and colossi that is honestly pretty cool, but it's only just a reskin version of more of the hell maps, just in a desert theme, which is, whatever. But I thought it was kind of nifty, honestly. But the style of the demons, there's a few new, enemy types here, which are fun. The Archvile is super annoying, as always. And besides that, there's some story that is, again, just filling in the details here and there, the things that no one was concerned about, like how did the Sentinels get to the Con Maker? When did they find out the Con Maker betrayed them? Like all these things that no one really cares about, but they had to fill it anyway. And then they also tacked on like character backstory with Doomguy, that they try to add this thing where it's a very hazy, vague thing where he used to be a real guy, a sergeant, and then he failed to save this girl, which is another metaphor for Daisy, and that's why he's PTSD and so dark and twisted. And it's the most like generic thing they could tack on to the Doomguy lore, which is fine. It was done in a like kind of very simplistic way because it was a very simplistic delivery, but it just felt a little bit cliche in a certain way. It's also very curious because I'm not trying to piece this all together, but you're in the Dark Ages, so this is way in the past. So are these like future visions of does the Doomguy reincarnate? Is he aware of all his future selves? And is was this in the past? But I don't know. It's all over the place. It's very confusing. The other thing that I also think is very bittersweet about this DLC is that they obviously tease a lot of the stuff they wanted to make next, which I think is very painful considering how the studio isn't shut down yet, but it's basically been crippled. Basically, the Doom studio is in a glory kill state right now. It's not dead yet, but it's just waiting to be basically taken out or shuttered by the people even working there who simply say, no, they can't do their job. To lose that much talent is just ridiculous. And so, for example, things they wanted to do is the King's Axe. In Eternal, rather, you had the energy sword, I forget what it's called, the Crucible. Then you had a hammer in the DLC. Then in this game you have a sword and a spear, and then they obviously were kind of teasing the King's Axe as the next thing they would have worked on. And it's interesting to think about back then, because the Crucible and the hammer were just basically power weapons. They didn't actually have a move set. They just did one move and that was it. While in this one, the shield you can throw it, you can parry with it, you can shield bash with it. So there's multiple things you can do with it. You can actually use it as a weapon rather than just a one-off thing like the chainsaw. And similarly, the spear, you can meat hook, you can throw it, you can slam it, you can bash it against enemies. So there's quite a few moves that you can do. And I would have thought it'd be really cool in the next Doom game to have a full, Devil May Cry style arsenal, where you're switching between different gear sets, where the sword has multiple moves, and the axe has multiple moves, and the hammer has multiple moves, and the spear has multiple moves, and the shield is kind of like a swap in between or something. It's always there, like it's the center one. I don't know, that'd be kind of cool, but also like a lot of, I guess, variety. Also, it's interesting how I mess around with the settings because the default controls, I really don't agree with them, honestly. It's very strange how they set things up. I've always had a sense of contention with Doom since, honestly, 2016, where it was right stick to melee and glory kill, and that just does not feel good to because you have to do it a lot. You have to do it like every 5 seconds of the game, every 10 seconds. So flicking in that stick does not feel good to do it consistently. It's good for like a giant moment or something, or like a very offhand kind of thing. But for me, I map that to the B button. Like pressing the B button to melee, it just makes so much sense. It's like Halo. I don't know. It flows better. You're tapping that button all the time. You can't tap your sticks all the time unless it's for like sprinting or changing camera angles or switching weapons. So what I did for Revelations, which is the most recent one in my mind, which I'll actually remember my control scheme for. They had X to swap the weapon class, and I changed that to Y. Just makes more sense. X is also the use button, and also I made X the dash button as it was in Eternal, again, in my settings. It just made sense to have that button available. And the other thing I also swapped up was, so the shield and the spear to kind of... so to swipe with the spear is L, to ready it for throw is LB, and then to dash again was X. And similar with the shield, L is to hold it, LB is to throw it, etc. The only difference is that, one of them you hold and one of them you press. I think what's also really cool, a real game changer into this game that I felt like should have been in Eternal with the Marauder, is now the dashing actually gives you power-ups. I don't remember if that was the case in Eternal, if dashing a successful green attack gave you power-ups, because green was kind of the symbol for you to initiate an attack so that you parry the enemy so that you can actually hurt them. And that's, of course, looking back, I would say, even though 2016 is still, I would think, like, it's still my favorite, but Dark Ages is very much up there as well. And then Eternal kind of comes in last, honestly. It's still a good game, still kind of up there, but it was very arcadey. It felt a little bit silly at times. It felt like things didn't really matter as much in the story or the universe as the first one. Dark Ages, again, I wish it mattered a little bit more, but at least the setting and style is a little bit more serious, I guess. And just the sound font just kind of felt better in 2016. It felt the best. Just the main menu song, though, for Eternal, this was very droning, boring, and whatever. While Doom 2016 was very serious. And yeah, the music in Dark Ages and Revelations is fine. It's it's not Mick Gordon, but everyone's trying to be Mick Gordon at this point, so it's all right, basically. But yeah, I would click the right stick to swap between the shield and the spear, because you don't do that super often. You're usually only using one of those. It's not like a huge weapon swap system. And I think that's pretty much everything. Oh, the only other thing I changed was the quick swap to the power weapons, which was supposed to be Y. I never, I'm sorry, if you're not using something super often, it should be relegated to the weird buttons like click and sticks or the D-pad. So my power weapon swap has always been up on the D-pad, and now with an additional, I think that's another thing that I'll quickly mention, is that there's a new power weapon in this game similar to the Unmaker in Eternal, but now, as besides the big ballistic force crossbow, you have the 93 shotgun you get by unlocking it by doing all the special missions, revelations, and it feels really, really great. It actually feels very cool to have a weapon that has its own. It doesn't share ammo. I think the Unmaker and the BFG shared ammo. This one's completely separate, so you find super shells or whatever for the 93 shotgun, and it's a really cool throwback. I also think the way they did the nostalgia or classic levels was really great because they're just reused maps from the original Doom and Doom 2 that are just done in a newer engine. And it's interesting how it doesn't feel as good actually as the originals, but it's kind of a very nice homage essentially. And they had that setting in previous games where you could do like custom maps and modes, and it was kind of cool to mess around with and find these things. Actually, I think in 2016 they had those custom levels, but here I don't know, it felt more streamlined. Like there was a classic level in every map, a part of a challenge to get all the collectibles. That's another thing I also felt a little bit weird about with the DLC is that you would beat the 4 levels, fight the boss. And then it was like, okay, now you unlock a master key. And now there's all these purple doors you can backtrack through and go through the levels and kind of find all the little goodies. So it was kind of, padding. Okay, we've added this backtracking thing where you go back through everything and you like find all the secrets. And they allowed you to fast travel. So they did build the game around that, compensating that. But it was a very interesting design choice because it made the world feel like a little bit like a Castlevania, like you're supposed to go back and find secrets when you didn't have all the items or keys you needed, which is like, okay, that's kind of cool, I guess. Like, I guess in terms of items, the shield, you need the shield for certain things to find certain things, and your map is very useful. So not everything is mapped on it, but it's pretty much obvious what you have to do. The one thing I ran into there was the last secret in the last level was hidden behind this gate. It was just an extra life, but it was the last secret in the level, and I could not figure out for the life of me what I'm supposed to do. So I'm looking for all these big switches or whatever. There's like a tiny little switch. Like I spent half an hour like not looking up a guide, but there's a tiny switch where you have to just press X on and it opens the gate. And that is entirely unprecedented for that game to have that solution to be a button on a door in another room almost. Aside from that, the backtracking is weird. And your reward for going through all the backtracking is you get a final secret boss, which is obviously like a cut enemy that they just wanted to have, and he has no story impact. And then after that, you have 4 extra arenas where you get, if you beat them, you get extra skins. And I usually don't do that extra stuff. Like I'm not super hardcore. But I did do it anyway, and I thought it was actually, I was kind of bored, and I just did it, and I thought, oh, that actually wasn't too bad, and I got all the extra skins. I'm like, okay, cool. Aside of that, though, the final boss was, and the whole story is like, there's this giant guy who's resurrected, and again, another thing they've teased, besides the axe, was this council, this high council of 6. I don't know if that's referring to the characters in the future games, because you had 3 kind of like clerics or wizards in Eternal, and then you had the Icon of Sin. But I kind of felt like there were 6 distinct bosses that were the overlords of hell, and Prince Arzak in the base game of Dark Ages, or Arkaz, I forget his name, is essentially just like the first entry point, and they set up this whole kind of shonen tier, like, oh, there's 6 overlords of hell that are the true high council, and you have to, and I thought I was going to take them out of the Revelations, but not at all. In fact, it was very much just a point of taking out this one guy called the Henchman. Like that is your main antagonist throughout the game, is this guy called the Henchman, who essentially transforms after you kind of do the typical Doom kill the guy thing. He turns into this super mutated Wesker version of himself. And aside from that, like he basically kills you in that segment. You go down to Purgatory, and there's this architect, this creature who basically, it's the first time you meet him, and he basically molds all your armor, helps you out, and he's the one who essentially builds you your modern Praetor Doom suit that you see in 2016. So kind of, again, filling in more of those gaps. It explains why his suit is built up of all these crystals that allow him to do the fast travel thing or the warp gate thing. We're like, okay, that's cool, and a kind of cool world building. That makes sense. But a lot of his character is still very much unexplained, and Yeah, basically. Also, Doom Guy's new look is pretty cool, more barbaric, more kind of obviously armorless in this one. And yeah, I know it's like a cool setting, it's a cool style, but unfortunately, it seems like we're not actually going to get a sequel to this. That's kind of why I'm talking about this. Is that I kind of thought to do a game review, but I'm talking about it in general. Is that they've lost their studio after this. I mean, they're basically gutted. They're basically in a position where they couldn't really make a new Doom game if they wanted to. And I think this is the fall of the game industry in a nutshell, which is that you have a very accomplished, like there are tons of studios that Microsoft has, like Compulsion Games making the Hellblade series. You had Double Fine making, well, they used to make Psychonauts, and now they just make weird one-off games, which I do love. But they're not Doom. They're not these huge blockbusters. And Microsoft, I guess, the corporation is just blind to the quality of its games. It doesn't matter if it's, Doom or if it's Kiln or Keeper, I mean, fine game, but that lasted me 3 hours and was somewhat memorable, but, I say more. So they just kind of looked at the spreadsheet. And so the death of the gaming industry is it's money, honestly. It's a bunch of executives looking at the cost on a spreadsheet and saying, okay, cut the studio, cut this many people. They unionized, okay, cut them. They want their rights, they want to get paid, cut them. And so this is the kind of sad downfall of, I think, every industry, is that you have the innovation of the technology, the introduction of the artists, and then the greed of the corporations. And so it goes in this 3-stage cycle, similar to gentrification. Honestly, you have a development of land, then you have a bunch of weird artists move in, and then it gets gentrified, and then the kind of expensive people drive everyone else out, and it's suddenly no longer worth being there. It becomes a safe, normal version of what it used to be, or normal people with no taste. And so that's basically what's happening here. It's not really that much different. And additionally, it's the death of not only id, but the death of the game industry studio in general. I mean, it's crazy how Microsoft, their strategy was to buy up all these studios and have them make all these amazing games. And now that they can't justify the cost of their company, some accountant or whatever has decided, okay, just cut them all and shut down the very thing that could actually make you money. It's just a very stupid, it sounds like a very advanced money laundering scheme. I mean, once you have enough money involved and the game industry is worth the most in turn and all entertainment, more than movies and music, once you have that amount of money, it was inevitable you were going to get a very series of stupid decisions. And again, throwing money at a problem is the worst thing you can do at it. You actually need an innovative solution. And just paying the problem to go away is not going to work, nor is it going to save the company. It's just a game now. It's a racket. It's, we kind of all knew this was the case, but now it's come for what I would say was the last bastion or icon of the Western game industry, which was id and Doom. I mean, Doom is synonymous with Western gaming as bread and butter. Like, it developed the FPS genre, and Western gamers and first-person shooters are just an inseparable pair from the entire era of Call of Duty to Halo. You could map Western gaming in the era based on what FPS game released that year. We went from Halo from 2001 to Call of Duty to I don't know, I guess Doom, maybe. There wasn't a really killer shooter during that time that dominated, but I'd say Doom was iconic. And now it's just shut down. It's gone. The game is over. The dreams are over. This technically is the last Doom game, and it's part of a trilogy of this studio, in my eyes at least, from 2016 to Eternal to now. And so, while these games, I think I still honestly love the original Doom games. While these games I don't think broke the mold as well as the very first Doom did back in the day, it was still innovating. It was still doing new, interesting things, innovations, character designs, weapons. It was still something worth exploring because it was novel. It was pushing the boundaries of what shooters were and Doom were and gaming in general. And that train has run out of gas. It's over now, essentially. And so this is more of an homage video um to this franchise and this series and what it used to be. And it's just a little bit just sad and disappointing that that's where that's what happened to it. So people say, oh no, it is still around, they'll make a comeback. Yeah, like Doom 4 was canceled and rebooted, but I don't know. I just think the whole industry is kind of collapsing, and this is kind of the last hurrah. And I think it's funny that the last installment in the series is literally called Revelations, where it's just very, I don't know, very, very mid, I guess. It's not bad. Like I said, the DLC, it feels good to play, but the actual implication and story beats and the whole structure and nature of the story is just very much simple and done, and we won't get a satisfying conclusion to anything, basically, which is the worst thing about this. So yeah, my Xbox One or my Xbox Series X was my Doom console, and with this last game, it is like the end of an era. And I only see myself getting a few more Xbox games, but again, with games going digital, with studios being shut down, with Concords, and many live service games like Highguard, along with studio shutdowns, canceled games, digital only. Live service, online games, like this was the last true game to come out from a AAA studio that actually cared. Now I'm just going to be looking at indies, basically, or other games that might look interesting, like Nintendo. I mean, really, at the end of the day, it comes down to creativity. You can say everything looks good on a spreadsheet and it looks amazing, but to actually play it and do it is something else. So this is the end of id, the end of Xbox for me, and the end of Western gaming as well. And it's very sad, and it's kind of how it happened. And the death of industry, again, is just too much money. Too much. You're suffering from success, and this is how you can kill a franchise, where you just pay the non-quality product gets more money. The Fortnites and the gacha games get more money than actual quality games like Doom. And so this is more of a send-off than a game review, and just saying it's over. And it was a pretty decent ending, but I really did enjoy my time with Doom, with Western gaming. And who knows, maybe there will be a rise from the ashes. There are, of course, people very passionate about Doom. For example, the Brutal Doom mod game is such an amazing mod and such a love letter to the original Doom that it does feel like a proper sequel, its own game. So the idea that it's truly fully over isn't true. There's going to be a bunch of fake copies, clones, whatever, but on the whole, it's done. But there might be some indie game, there might be some developer, there might be some inspired person from Doom that makes a Brutal Doom, but on a large scale, and that I think would definitely tip the balance favorably. But yeah, that's pretty much it. It's over, and a rebirth is due, and who knows if it'll come. Maybe it won't, maybe it will. And yeah, that's it. See you.